Sarah Martinez loved Saturday mornings. She would wake up slowly, make her favorite coffee, and sit by the window in her small apartment. The sun was shining bright that morning in March. Birds were singing outside her window. Everything felt peaceful and calm. Sarah had moved to this apartment building 2 years ago. She liked living there because it was quiet and safe. Her neighbors were friendly. The rent was fair. She had a good job at the local bank where she worked as a customer service representative. Life was simple and good. That Saturday morning started like any other. Sarah made her coffee with extra cream, just the way she liked it. She put on her favorite blue robe and sat in her chair by the window. She was reading a book about cooking when she heard a loud knock on her door. The knocking was not gentle. It was hard and angry. Bang, bang, bang. Sarah jumped in her chair. She was not expecting anyone. Her friends always called before visiting. The mailman never came on Saturday. Sarah felt confused and a little scared. She walked to the door and looked through the peephole. A woman stood outside. The woman looked angry. She had short gray hair and wore a dark blue suit. She was holding a thick folder of papers. The woman knocked again, even harder this time. Sarah opened the door slowly. She kept the chain lock on for safety. "Hello," Sarah said quietly. "Can I help you?" The woman pushed closer to the door. "Are you Sarah Martinez?" she asked in a loud, sharp voice. "Yes, I am," Sarah answered. She felt nervous. The woman seemed very upset about something. "Finally," the woman said. "I am Linda Hoffman. I am the president of the Willowbrook Estates Homeowners Association. We need to talk right now." Sarah had never heard of Willowbrook Estates. She did not know what a homeowners association was. She lived in an apartment, not a house. "I think you have the wrong person," Sarah said politely. Linda's face turned red. "I do not have the wrong person. You are Sarah Martinez and you live at 847 Maple Street in Willowbrook Estates. You owe us a lot of money for breaking our rules." Sarah felt very confused. She had never lived on Maple Street. She had never been to Willowbrook Estates. She did not even know where it was. "Ma'am, I think there is a mistake. I live here in this apartment." "I have lived here for 2 years." Linda rolled her eyes. "Do not lie to me," she said in a mean voice. "I have all the papers right here." "You have broken so many rules. You owe us $3,200. Sarah's mouth fell open. $3,000 was a lot of money. That was almost 2 months of her salary. "There must be some mistake," she said again. "I really do not live in Willowbrook Estates." Linda opened her folder and pulled out many papers. "Look at this," she said, pushing the papers toward Sarah. "Your grass is too long. You have too many cars in your driveway. Your house paint is old and ugly. You put your trash cans out on the wrong day. You planted flowers without asking permission first." Sarah looked at the papers. They had her name on them, but everything else was wrong. She did not have a house. She did not have a driveway. She did not have trash cans. She lived in an apartment with a small balcony where she grew tomatoes in pots. "This is not me," Sarah said, pointing to the papers. "I do not have any of these things. I live in an apartment." Linda laughed, but it was not a nice laugh. "Stop playing games with me. I know you live at 847 Maple Street. I have been to your house many times. I have taken pictures of all your violations." Linda pulled out a stack of photos from her folder. She showed them to Sarah through the crack in the door. The photos showed a house with brown walls and a red roof. The grass in the yard was very long and had weeds. There were 3 old cars parked in the driveway. The paint on the house was peeling off in many places. Sarah looked at the photos carefully. She had never seen this house before in her life. "This is not my house," she said. "I have never been to this place. Stop lying." Linda shouted. "This is 847 Maple Street. This is your house. You bought it 3 years ago. I have the records." Sarah felt her heart beating fast. This woman was very angry and would not listen. "Please, let me show you my lease," Sarah said. "I can prove I live here in this apartment." Linda waved her hand in the air. "I do not want to see fake papers. I know the truth. You live at 847 Maple Street, and you have broken our rules many times. You must pay the fines now." Sarah tried to stay calm. "How much money do you think I owe?" Linda looked at her papers again. $3,200. You have been ignoring our letters for 6 months. Every month you do not pay, we add more money to your bill." Sarah felt sick to her stomach. She had never received any letters from this woman or her group. She checked her mail every day. She always paid her bills on time. "I never got any letters," she said. That is because you moved and did not tell us your new address, Linda said. But we found you anyway. I did not move, Sarah said. I have lived in this same apartment for 2 years. Before that, I lived with my sister across town. I have never lived in Willowbrook Estates. Linda put her hands on her hips. I do not have time for these lies. You have 48 hours to pay the money. If you do not pay, we will take you to court. We will put a lien on your house. You will have to pay even more money. Sarah did not know what a lien was, but it sounded scary. Please, can we sit down and talk about this calmly? I think there is a big mistake here. The only mistake is you thinking you can ignore the rules, Linda said. Everyone in Willowbrook Estates must follow the rules. No one is special. No one gets to break the rules without paying. Linda put all her papers back in the folder. I will be back on Monday for the money. $3,200. Cash or check. Do not try to run away. We know where you live now. Linda turned around and walked away quickly. Her high heels made loud clicking sounds on the floor. Sarah watched her get into a big white car and drive away fast. Sarah closed the door and sat down on her couch. Her hands were shaking. Her coffee was now cold. She felt scared and confused. How could this be happening? She had never done anything wrong. She always followed rules. She was a good person. Sarah looked at the business card Linda had left on her doormat. It said Linda Hoffman, President, Willowbrook Estates HOA. There was a phone number and an address. Sarah had never heard of this place before today. She picked up her phone and called her sister Maria. Something very strange just happened, Sarah said when Maria answered. What is wrong? Maria asked. You sound upset. Sarah told her sister everything that had happened. Maria listened carefully. That sounds crazy, Maria said. You have never lived in a house. You have always lived in apartments. I know, Sarah said. But this woman was so sure. She had papers with my name on them. She had pictures of a house. Maybe someone is using your name, Maria suggested. Maybe someone stole your identity. Sarah had heard about identity theft on the news. Bad people sometimes used other people's names to buy things or get credit cards. What should I do? Sarah asked. First, do not pay any money, Maria said. This is not your problem. Second, we need to find out what is really going on. Do you want me to come over? Yes, please, Sarah said. I am really scared. After Sarah hung up the phone, she sat quietly for a few minutes. Her peaceful Saturday morning was ruined. She had a big problem now and she did not know how to fix it. Sarah looked out her window at the sunny day. Everything looked the same as before, but nothing felt the same. A stranger had come to her door and accused her of things she did not do. The stranger wanted her to pay a lot of money. The stranger threatened to take her to court. Sarah had never been in trouble with the law. She had never owed anyone money except for her normal bills. She was a quiet person who minded her own business. How had this happened to her? She decided to make a list of everything she remembered about the conversation with Linda. She wrote down the name, Willowbrook Estates. She wrote down the address 847 Maple Street. She wrote down the amount of money Linda wanted. She wrote down everything Linda had said about the violations. When Sarah finished writing, she looked at the list. None of it made sense. It was like Linda was talking about a completely different person who just happened to have the same name. Sarah heard a car door slam outside. She looked out the window and saw her sister Maria walking toward the building. Sarah felt better already. Maria was smart and strong. Maria would help her figure out what to do. But deep down, Sarah felt worried. This problem was not going to be easy to solve. Linda seemed like a very difficult person. Linda did not want to listen to reason. Linda just wanted money. Sarah opened the door before Maria could knock. Thank you for coming so fast, she said, giving her sister a big hug. Do not worry, Maria said. We will figure this out together. No one is going to make you pay money for something you did not do. Sarah hoped her sister was right, but she had a feeling this was just the beginning of a very big problem. Maria sat down on Sarah's couch and listened carefully as Sarah told the whole story again. Maria looked at the business card Linda had left behind. She shook her head as she read it. This woman sounds terrible, Maria said. She did not even try to listen to you. She just wanted to yell and demand money. Sarah nodded. She was so mean. She kept calling me a liar. She would not believe anything I said. Maria picked up her phone. Let me call this HOA office. Maybe we can talk to someone who is more reasonable. Sarah watched as Maria dialed the number on the business card. The phone rang several times before someone answered. Willowbrook Estates HOA, this is Janet speaking, said a voice on the other end. Hello, Maria said in her most polite voice. I am calling about my sister, Sarah Martinez. There seems to be some confusion about where she lives. Oh, Janet said. Her voice sounded tired. Are you calling about the violations at 847 Maple Street? Yes, but that is the problem, Maria explained. My sister has never lived at that address. She lives in an apartment across town. Your president, Linda Hoffman, came to her apartment today demanding money. There was silence on the phone for a moment. Then Janet said, Let me look at the file. Sarah could hear the sound of papers being moved around. The file says Sarah Martinez bought the house at 847 Maple Street 3 years ago. She has not been responding to our letters about the violations. Maria looked at Sarah and rolled her eyes. Ma'am, I can promise you that my sister has never lived in a house. She has lived in the same apartment for 2 years. Before that, she lived with me. There must be another Sarah Martinez. That is possible, Janet said slowly. But Linda is very sure about this. She has been working on this case for months. She even drove by the house many times to take pictures. Can you tell me what the file says about this Sarah Martinez? Maria asked. Maybe we can figure out what is wrong. Janet was quiet for a minute. I am not supposed to give out personal information, but since you are family, I can tell you a few things. The file says Sarah Martinez is 28 years old. She works at First National Bank. She bought the house for $150,000. Sarah's eyes got wide. She was 28 years old. She did work at First National Bank, but she had never bought a house for any amount of money. What is the middle name? Maria asked. It just says Sarah Martinez, Janet replied. No middle name is listed, Sarah whispered to Maria. My middle name is Elena. Ask her about that. Does the file show a middle name? Maria asked. My sister's middle name is Elena. Let me check, Janet said. After a pause, she said, The file does not show any middle name. Just Sarah Martinez. Maria looked thoughtful. What about other information? Like a social security number or date of birth? I cannot give out that information over the phone, Janet said. That would not be safe. I understand, Maria said. But this is a big problem. Your president is threatening to take my sister to court for something she did not do. Can my sister come to your office to look at the file? Janet sighed. She can try, but Linda will probably be there. Linda has been very upset about this case. She says people are always trying to avoid paying their fines by making up excuses. This is not an excuse, Maria said firmly. This is a real mistake. My sister has never even heard of Willowbrook Estates before today. Where does your sister live? Janet asked. Maria gave her Sarah's address. Janet was quiet for a long time. That is very far from Willowbrook Estates, she finally said. It would be strange for someone to buy a house here and live so far away. Exactly, Maria said. That is why this does not make sense. Can you please ask Linda to look at this more carefully? I can try, Janet said. But Linda does not like to be told she made a mistake. She gets very angry. Well, she did make a mistake, Maria said. A big one. And she was very rude to my sister. After Maria hung up the phone, she and Sarah sat quietly for a moment. Sarah felt a little better knowing that Janet seemed nicer than Linda, but she was still worried. What should we do now? Sarah asked. We need to prove that you are not the right Sarah Martinez, Maria said. Do you have your lease agreement? Sarah nodded and went to get her important papers from a file cabinet. She brought back her lease, her bank statements, her work ID, and her driver's license. Maria looked at all the papers. This clearly shows you live in your apartment. You have lived there for 2 years. Your work address is downtown, not near Willowbrook Estates. But Linda did not want to see any papers, Sarah said. She said I could fake anything. That is ridiculous, Maria said. These are official documents. You cannot fake a lease or bank statements easily. Sarah's phone rang. She looked at the caller ID. It was a number she did not recognize. Should I answer it? Go ahead, Maria said. Sarah answered the phone. Hello? Is this Sarah Martinez? Asked a man's voice. Yes, Sarah said carefully. This is Officer Johnson from the Willowbrook Estates Security Office. I am calling about the violations at your property. We need to schedule a time for you to come in and discuss the fines. Sarah felt her heart start beating fast again. Officer, I think there is a mistake. I do not own any property in Willowbrook Estates. Ma'am, please do not make this difficult, the officer said. Mrs. Hoffman has given me your file. You owe a significant amount of money. If you do not cooperate, we will have to take legal action. Sarah looked at Maria with panic in her eyes. Maria took the phone from her. This is Sarah's sister, Maria said. There is a big mistake here. Sarah has never lived in Willowbrook Estates. She lives in an apartment across town. Ma'am, I have the paperwork right here, Officer Johnson said. Sarah Martinez bought 847 Maple Street 3 years ago. The property has multiple violations. The fines total $3,200. Officer, have you actually seen Sarah Martinez in person? Maria asked. No, but that does not matter. I have her information in the file. It matters a lot, Maria said, because the Sarah Martinez in your file is not my sister. There must be another person with the same name. Officer Johnson was quiet for a moment. That seems unlikely. Sarah Martinez is not a very common name. Maria almost laughed. Officer Sarah Martinez is actually a very common name. There are probably hundreds of Sarah Martinez women in this city alone. Well, Officer Johnson said slowly, Mrs. Hoffman seems very sure about this. Mrs. Hoffman is wrong, Maria said firmly, and she was very rude to my sister. She came to Sarah's apartment and demanded money. She would not listen when Sarah tried to explain. Mrs. Hoffman can be intense, Officer Johnson admitted. But she is usually right about these things. Not this time, Maria said. Can you please check your records more carefully? Look for a different Sarah Martinez? I suppose I could look, Officer Johnson said. But if you're trying to avoid paying legitimate fines, that is a serious matter. We are not trying to avoid anything, Maria said. We are trying to fix a mistake. My sister is an honest person. She pays all her bills on time. She follows all rules. She would never ignore official letters. After Maria hung up, Sarah felt even more worried. Now there was a security officer involved. This was getting bigger and more serious. Maria, what if they really do take me to court? Sarah asked. What if a judge believes them instead of me? That will not happen, Maria said. We have proof that you live in your apartment. We have your lease, your bank statements, everything. But what if that is not enough? What if they have fake papers that look real? Maria hugged her sister. Stop worrying about that. We will figure this out. Tomorrow we will go to the HOA office together. We will bring all your papers. We will make them understand. Sarah tried to feel better, but it was hard. She had never been in trouble before. She did not know how these things worked. What if the courts believed the HOA instead of her? That evening, Sarah could not eat dinner. She kept thinking about Linda's angry face and harsh words. She kept thinking about the $3,000. That was more money than Sarah had in her savings account. Sarah called her friend Jessica to tell her what had happened. Jessica was shocked. That is crazy, Jessica said. How can they demand money from you for a house you do not own? I do not know, Sarah said. But they seem very sure I am the right person. Have you thought about calling a lawyer? Jessica asked. Sarah's stomach dropped. I cannot afford a lawyer. Lawyers cost a lot of money. Maybe you can find a free legal aid service, Jessica suggested. They help people who do not have much money. After Sarah hung up, she felt overwhelmed. She might need a lawyer. She might have to go to court. All because of a mistake about her name. Sarah decided to look up Willowbrook Estates on the internet. She found their website and looked at pictures of the neighborhood. It was a nice area with big houses and pretty gardens. The houses looked expensive. Sarah found a map showing where Willowbrook Estates was located. It was on the other side of the city from her apartment. It would take 45 minutes to drive there. Sarah had never been to that part of town. She looked at the HOA rules on the website. There were many rules about grass height, car parking, house colors, and garden plants. The rules seemed very strict. If you broke a rule, you had to pay a fine. If you did not pay the fine quickly, you had to pay even more money. Sarah read about Linda Hoffman on the website. Linda had been the HOA. Sarah woke up early on Sunday morning feeling tired and worried. She had not slept well. Every time she dozed off, she dreamed about Linda Hoffman demanding money. Sarah made coffee and sat by her window, but the sunny morning did not make her feel better like it usually did. Maria called at 9 o'clock. How are you feeling? She asked. Scared, Sarah said honestly. I keep thinking about what will happen if they really take me to court. That is not going to happen, Maria said firmly. Today we are going to solve this problem. We are going to find out who really owns that house. Sarah had been thinking about the same thing. How can we find out? We can look up property records online, Maria explained. The county keeps records of who owns every house. We can see exactly who bought 847 Maple Street. Sarah felt a little hope for the first time since yesterday. That is a good idea. Can you help me do that? I am coming over right now, Maria said. Bring your laptop to the kitchen table. We are going to be detectives today. When Maria arrived, she brought her own laptop and a notebook. She was wearing jeans and a t-shirt and she looked ready to work. Okay, Maria said, opening her laptop. Let me show you how to search property records. Maria went to the county assessor's website. She typed in 847 Maple Street and clicked search. A page came up with lots of information about the house. Look, Maria said, pointing at the screen. The owner is listed as S. Martinez. Sarah felt her heart sink. That could be me. Wait, Maria said. Look at the first name. It just shows S. It does not show the full first name. Sarah looked more carefully. The record showed S. Martinez but no full first name. It also showed when the house was bought, how much it cost, and other details. This was bought 3 years ago for $150,000, Maria read, but it does not say if S. Martinez is Sarah or Samuel or Stephen or any other S name. Sarah felt a little better. So it might not be me after all. Exactly, Maria said. We need to find more information. Let me try a different search. Maria typed S. Martinez and Willowbrook Estates into a search engine. Several results came up. Most of them were about the HOA violations, but one result looked different. Look at this, Maria said, clicking on a link. This is a news article about National Guard deployments. Someone named Samuel Martinez from Willowbrook Estates was deployed overseas 6 months ago. Sarah read the article carefully. It was a short piece about local soldiers being sent to serve in other countries. Samuel Martinez was mentioned as one of the soldiers. The article said he lived in Willowbrook Estates and worked as a construction contractor. Samuel Martinez, Sarah said slowly. That could be the S. Martinez who owns the house. I think you are right, Maria said excitedly. And look at the timing. The article says he was deployed 6 months ago. That would explain why the house has been neglected. If he is overseas, he cannot take care of his property. Sarah felt much better now. This was starting to make sense. So the HOA has been sending letters to Samuel Martinez, but he is not there to get them. And somehow they got confused and thought I was him. That must be it, Maria agreed. Linda probably looked up Sarah Martinez in the phone book or online and found your address. She assumed you were the same person as S. Martinez. Sarah shook her head. But that is so sloppy. She should have checked more carefully before accusing me. Linda does not seem like the type of person who admits mistakes, Maria said. She probably decided you were guilty and then looked for evidence to support what she already believed. Maria continued searching online. She found more information about Samuel Martinez. He was 34 years old. He owned a small construction company. He had bought the house as an investment property, meaning he planned to rent it out or sell it later. This explains everything, Sarah said. Samuel bought the house but then got deployed before he could fix it up or find renters. The house has been empty for months, so it looks abandoned. And the HOA kept sending violation letters to Samuel, but he never got them because he is overseas. Maria added, so they think he is ignoring them on purpose. Sarah printed out all the information they had found. She wanted to have proof when she talked to Linda again. Should we try to contact Samuel Martinez? Sarah asked. That is a good idea, Maria said. But how can we find him if he is overseas? Maria searched for more information about Samuel Martinez's construction company. She found a website with a phone number and email address. The website said the company was temporarily closed due to military deployment. Let me try calling the number, Sarah said. Sarah dialed the number. It rang several times and then went to voicemail. A man's voice said, You have reached Martinez Construction. We are currently closed due to military deployment. For urgent matters, please email us at martinez.construction.contactwemail.com. We will respond as soon as possible. Perfect, Maria said. Send him an email. Explain what is happening. Maybe he can help solve this problem. Sarah wrote a careful email to Samuel Martinez. She explained who she was and how the HOA had confused her with him. She told him about the violations at his house and the fines they were demanding. She asked if he could contact the HOA to clear up the confusion. After sending the email, Sarah felt much better. She finally had a plan. She had evidence that she was not the right Sarah Martinez. She had found the real owner of the house. Now she just needed to prove it to Linda. What should we do next? Sarah asked. We should go look at the house, Maria said. I want to see this place that has caused so much trouble. Sarah felt nervous about that idea. What if someone sees us? What if they think we are trying to break in? We will just drive by and look, Maria said. We will not get out of the car. I want to see what condition the house is in. Sarah agreed, even though she felt scared. They got in Maria's car and drove across the city to Willowbrook Estates. Sarah had never been to this part of town before. The houses were much bigger and nicer than where she lived. Willowbrook Estates was a gated community. There was a security guard at the entrance. Maria drove up to the gate and rolled down her window. We are here to look at a house, Maria told the guard. 847 Maple Street. The guard looked at a list on his clipboard. Are you with a real estate company? No, Maria said. We are trying to resolve an issue with the HOA. The guard looked suspicious. What kind of issue? There has been a case of mistaken identity, Maria explained. The HOA thinks my sister owns a house here, but she does not. We want to see the house to understand the situation better. The guard thought for a moment. Okay, you can go in. But do not get out of your car. Just drive by and look. Thank you, Maria said. They drove through the neighborhood looking for Maple Street. All the houses were beautiful and well-maintained. The lawns were perfect. The gardens were neat and colorful. Everything looked expensive and carefully planned. Finally, they found 847 Maple Street. Sarah gasped when she saw it. The house was completely different from all the others in the neighborhood. The grass was very long and full of weeds. The paint on the house was old and peeling. There were 3 old cars parked in the driveway. One car had a flat tire. Another car looked like it had not been driven in months. Wow, Maria said. No wonder the HOA is upset. This house looks terrible compared to all the others. Sarah stared at the house. It was a nice house underneath all the neglect. It had good bones, as her father used to say, but it clearly needed a lot of work. I have never seen this house before in my life, Sarah said. I am completely sure of that. I believe you, Maria said. But I can understand why Linda is frustrated. If I lived in this beautiful neighborhood and had to look at this messy house every day, I would be upset too. They sat in the car for a few minutes, looking at the house. Sarah tried to imagine Samuel Martinez living there before his deployment. She wondered if he had planned to fix up the house but ran out of time before he had to leave for military service. Look, Maria said, pointing to the mailbox. The mailbox is overflowing with letters. Sarah could see envelopes sticking out of the mailbox. Some had fallen on the ground. Those are probably all the HOA violation letters. And maybe some personal mail for Samuel too, Maria added. Bills, bank statements, everything. As they were getting ready to leave, Sarah noticed a car driving slowly down the street. It was a big white car that looked familiar. Oh no, Sarah said. I think that is Linda's car. The white car stopped in front of 847 Maple Street. Linda got out and walked toward the house. She was carrying her folder of papers and a camera. She's taking more pictures, Maria said. She really is dedicated to her job. Linda walked around the house taking photos of the long grass, the old cars, and the peeling paint. She even took pictures of the overflowing mailbox. Should we talk to her now? Sarah asked. No, Maria said. Let us wait until tomorrow when we go to the HOA office. We want to have all our evidence organized first. They watched Linda finish taking pictures and get back in her car. Linda looked very determined and serious about her work. As they drove home, Sarah felt both hopeful and nervous. She was hopeful because she now understood what had happened. There really was another S. Martinez who owned the house. She had proof that she was not that person, but she was also nervous because Linda seemed very committed to collecting the fines. Linda had spent months working on this case. Monday morning came too quickly for Sarah. She woke up feeling nervous but determined. Today she would go to the HOA office and prove her innocence. She had spent all of Sunday preparing her evidence. Now it was time to use it. Sarah dressed carefully in her best work clothes. She wanted to look professional and trustworthy. She put all her papers in a neat folder and checked her email one more time. Still no reply from Samuel Martinez, but she was not surprised. Military personnel overseas probably did not check email every day. Maria arrived at 9 o'clock sharp. She was also dressed professionally and carried a notebook and pen. Are you ready for this? She asked. As ready as I can be, Sarah said, though her hands were shaking a little. They drove to the HOA office in Willowbrook Estates. The office was in a small building near the main entrance to the community. It looked official and intimidating with its dark windows and serious signs. Sarah took a deep breath as they walked through the front door. Inside, there was a small, waiting area with uncomfortable chairs and a reception desk. A woman with brown hair and kind eyes sat behind the desk. She looked up when they entered. "Good morning," the woman said. "I am Janet. How can I help you?" Sarah recognized the voice from yesterday's phone call. "Hello, Janet. I am Sarah Martinez. We spoke on the phone yesterday about the confusion with 847 Maple Street." Janet's face showed recognition and sympathy. "Oh yes, of course, I remember. You are the one with the sister." Janet looked at Maria. "You must be the sister." "Yes, I am Maria," Maria said. "We brought some evidence to show that Sarah is not the right person. Is Linda available to meet with us?" Janet looked uncomfortable. "Linda is here, but she is not in a good mood today. She was very upset when I told her about your phone call yesterday. She said people are always trying to make excuses." Sarah felt her heart sink. "But we are not making excuses. We have proof that I do not own that house." "I believe you," Janet said quietly. "But Linda does not like to be questioned. She has been working on this case for months. She thinks she knows all the facts." "Can we please talk to her?" Maria asked. "We just want 5 minutes to show her our evidence." Janet hesitated. "I will ask her, but please be prepared. She might not be very friendly." Janet walked to a door marked President and knocked gently. Sarah could hear angry voices inside, but she could not understand the words. After a few minutes, the door opened. Linda Hoffman came out looking just as angry as she had on Saturday. She was wearing another dark suit and carrying the same thick folder. When she saw Sarah, her face got even angrier. "What are you doing here?" Linda demanded. "I told you to bring the money, not more excuses." Sarah stood up straighter. "Mrs. Hoffman, I brought evidence to show that I am not the person you are looking for. There has been a mistake." Linda crossed her arms. "The only mistake is you thinking you can fool me with fake papers. I have been doing this job for 5 years. I know when people are lying." Maria stepped forward. "Mrs. Hoffman, we are not lying. We have found the real owner of 847 Maple Street. His name is Samuel Martinez, not Sarah Martinez." Linda rolled her eyes. "Oh, now it is Samuel? Yesterday it was Sarah claiming she lived in an apartment. Today you have invented a brother or cousin named Samuel. What story will you tell tomorrow?" Sarah felt frustrated but tried to stay calm. "There is no story. Samuel Martinez is a real person. He owns the house at 847 Maple Street. He is currently deployed overseas with the National Guard. That is why the house has been neglected." "Prove it," Linda said, crossing her arms tighter. Sarah opened her folder and pulled out the property records. "Here are the county records. They show that S. Martinez owns the house. The records do not specify if S stands for Sarah or Samuel." Linda barely looked at the papers. "Anyone can print fake documents from the internet." Maria pulled out her phone. "Here is a news article about Samuel Martinez being deployed overseas 6 months ago. It mentions that he lives in Willowbrook Estates." Linda glanced at the phone screen for 2 seconds. "That could be anyone. You probably made a fake website." Sarah could not believe what she was hearing. "Mrs. Hoffman, these are real official documents. The county records are not fake. The news article is from a real newspaper." "I have heard every excuse in the book," Linda said. "People will do anything to avoid paying their fines. They make up stories about relatives. They claim identity theft. They forge documents. I have seen it all." Janet, who had been listening quietly, spoke up. "Linda, maybe we should look at their evidence more carefully. The phone call yesterday seemed legitimate." Linda turned her angry stare toward Janet. "Do not tell me how to do my job. I have been investigating this case for months. I know the facts." Sarah pulled out her lease agreement. "This shows that I have lived in my apartment for 2 years. Here are my bank statements showing rent payments to my landlord. Here is my work ID showing I work downtown, not near Willowbrook Estates." Linda waved her hand dismissively. "Fake, fake, and fake. You had plenty of time to create false documents after I visited you on Saturday." Maria's voice got louder. This is ridiculous. How can you call official government documents fake? The county property records are public information. Anyone can verify them. I already verified them, Linda said. S. Martinez owns the house. You are Sarah Martinez. Therefore, you own the house. It is simple logic. Sarah felt like she was talking to a wall. But S could stand for many names: Samuel, Stephen, Scott, Simon. It does not have to be Sarah. You are reaching, Linda said. The simplest explanation is usually the right one. You bought the house 3 years ago. You have been ignoring our letters. Now you are trying to get out of paying the fines. Janet looked very uncomfortable. Linda, what if we called the county office to verify the full name on the property records? That would settle this question. Linda's face turned red. I do not need to call anyone. I know what I am doing. These people are wasting our time with elaborate lies. Sarah pulled out her driver's license. Look at my license. It shows my full name, Sarah Elena Martinez. It shows my apartment address. I have lived there for 2 years. Linda barely glanced at the license. Driver's licenses can be faked too. There are websites that make fake IDs for criminals. Maria threw her hands up in frustration. You are calling my sister a criminal now? This is crazy. She is an honest person who works at a bank. She has never been in trouble with the law. Bank employees can be criminals too, Linda said coldly. Some of the worst financial crimes are committed by people who work in banks. Sarah felt tears starting to form in her eyes. This was not going the way she had hoped. Linda was determined not to listen to any evidence. She had already decided Sarah was guilty, and nothing would change her mind. Mrs. Hoffman, Sarah said, trying one more time. I have never lived in a house. I have always lived in apartments. I cannot afford to buy a house on my salary. I do not know anything about homeowner associations or property maintenance. That explains why your house is in such terrible condition, Linda said. You bought something you could not afford and then abandoned it. Janet looked like she wanted to help but was afraid of Linda's anger. Linda, maybe we could schedule another meeting after we verify some of these documents. There will be no more meetings, Linda said firmly. The evidence is clear. Sarah Martinez owns 847 Maple Street. She owes $3,200 in fines. She has 48 hours to pay. Maria stood up angrily. And what if she does not pay? What if she cannot pay money she does not owe? Linda smiled, but it was not a nice smile. Then we will file a lawsuit. We will put a lien on the house. We will garnish her wages if necessary. The HOA has many tools to collect unpaid fines. Sarah felt sick to her stomach. A lawsuit? Garnished wages? She had never heard these words applied to her before. She was a law-abiding citizen who always paid her bills on time. You cannot garnish someone's wages for a debt they do not owe, Maria said. We will let the court decide that, Linda replied. When we show the judge our evidence, he will see the truth. Sarah Martinez owns the house. Sarah Martinez owes the money. Sarah looked around the office desperately. On the wall, she saw a list of HOA board members. Linda was the president, but there were other officers too. A vice president, a treasurer, a secretary. Can we speak to other board members? Sarah asked. Maybe someone else could review our evidence? Linda stepped in front of Sarah, blocking her view of the list. I am the president. All decisions go through me. The other board members trust my judgment. Janet finally spoke up more boldly. Linda, I think we should get a second opinion on this. The evidence they brought looks legitimate to me. Linda turned her fury toward Janet. You are not qualified to judge evidence. You are just the office assistant. I am the one with experience in these matters. Sarah could see that Janet was trying to help, but Linda was too powerful. As president of the HOA, Linda could overrule anyone who disagreed with her. What would it take to convince you? Sarah asked desperately. What evidence would you accept? A check for $3,200, Linda said. That is the only evidence I need to see. Maria grabbed Sarah's arm. Come on, we are wasting our time here. This woman will not listen to reason. As they walked toward the door, Janet called out quietly, Wait. She handed Sarah a business card. This is our security. At 2 o'clock that afternoon, Sarah and Maria drove back to Willowbrook Estates to meet with Officer Johnson. The security office was a small building near the main gate. It looked much more welcoming than the HOA office. Officer Johnson was a middle-aged man with gray hair and a kind face. He was wearing a uniform that looked like a police officer's uniform, but with Willowbrook Security written on it. He greeted them with a firm handshake and a friendly smile. "Please sit down," Officer Johnson said, pointing to chairs in his small office. "I have to admit I am curious about your story. In 5 years of working here, I have never seen anyone bring so much documentation to dispute a case." Sarah felt hopeful for the first time all day. Finally, someone was willing to listen. "Thank you for meeting with us," Sarah said. "I know this situation is confusing, but I really think there has been a big mistake." Officer Johnson opened a file folder. "Let me tell you what I know from our records. S. Martinez bought 847 Maple Street 3 years ago for $150,000. The house has been cited for multiple violations over the past 6 months. Tall grass, unauthorized vehicles peeling paint, and failure to maintain the property." "That all sounds right," Sarah said. "But I am not S. Martinez. I mean, I'm a Sarah Martinez, but not the S. Martinez who owns that house." Officer Johnson looked interested. "Explain that to me." Sarah pulled out her folder of evidence. This time, she organized it carefully and presented each piece one by one. "First, here is my lease agreement showing I have lived in an apartment for 2 years. Here are my bank statements showing rent payments. Here is my work identification showing I work downtown." Officer Johnson examined each document carefully. He did not dismiss them like Linda had. He actually read them and asked questions. "This lease is signed by both you and your landlord," he noted. "And these bank statements show consistent rent payments for 2 years. That would be hard to fake." "Exactly," Maria said. "My sister has never lived anywhere except apartments. She does not know anything about maintaining a house." Officer Johnson continued looking through the evidence. "What is this news article?" "That is about Samuel Martinez being deployed overseas with the National Guard," Sarah explained. "He lives in Willowbrook Estates and was deployed 6 months ago. That matches exactly when the violation started." Officer Johnson read the article twice. "Samuel Martinez, age 34, construction contractor, deployed to overseas base for 12 months. Lives in Willowbrook Estates." He looked up at Sarah. "How old are you?" 28, Sarah said. "And what do you do for work?" "I work at First National Bank in customer service." Officer Johnson nodded thoughtfully. "So you are 4 years younger than Samuel Martinez, and you have a completely different job." "That supports your theory that you are different people." Sarah felt encouraged. "We also found his business website. It shows his construction company is closed during his military deployment." Officer Johnson wrote notes in his file. "This is very interesting. Mrs. Hoffman told me you were obviously the same person trying to avoid paying fines. But this evidence suggests otherwise. Can you help us contact Samuel Martinez?" Maria asked. "If we could talk to him directly, he could confirm that he owns the house." "That is a good idea," Officer Johnson said. "Do you have contact information for him?" Sarah gave him the email address and phone number from Samuel's business website. "We sent him an email yesterday, but he has not replied yet. He is probably very busy with military duties." Officer Johnson picked up his phone. "Let me try calling his number right now." He dialed the number and put it on speakerphone. They heard the same voicemail message Sarah had heard before. "You have reached Martinez Construction. We are currently closed due to military deployment." "Well, that confirms he is deployed," Officer Johnson said. "Let me try the email approach." Officer Johnson wrote a professional email explaining the situation. He identified himself as a security officer from Willowbrook Estates and asked Samuel to contact them about urgent matters regarding his property at 847 Maple Street. If he is checking email at all, this should get his attention, Officer Johnson said after sending the message. Sarah felt more hopeful than she had all day. Finally, someone was taking her seriously and actually trying to solve the problem. "What happens now?" Sarah asked. "Now we wait to see if Samuel Martinez responds," Officer Johnson said. "In the meantime, I want to review the original documentation for this case." Officer Johnson pulled out another file folder. This one was much thicker and had Linda's neat handwriting all over it. "Let me see," he said, flipping through pages. The first violation notice was sent 6 months ago for tall grass. Then there were notices for unauthorized vehicles, peeling paint, and improper trash placement. That matches the timeline of Samuel's deployment, Maria pointed out. Yes, it does, Officer Johnson agreed. And look at this. All the letters were sent to 847 Maple Street, but they were all returned as undeliverable. Sarah leaned forward. What does that mean? It means the post office could not deliver them. Usually that happens when no one is living at the address to receive mail. Because Samuel is overseas, Sarah said excitedly. So he never got any of the letters warning him about the violations. Officer Johnson nodded. That would explain why the violations continued. If he never received the notices, he would not know there was a problem. Maria looked confused about something. But how did Linda get Sarah's address? How did she know where to find her? Officer Johnson looked through Linda's file. It says here that she searched public records for Sarah Martinez and found your address through voter registration records. But that does not make sense, Sarah said. My voter registration shows my apartment address, not 847 Maple Street. That is exactly the problem, Officer Johnson said, understanding dawning in his voice. Mrs. Hoffman found a Sarah Martinez in the public records and assumed it was the same Sarah Martinez who owned the house. She never checked to see if the addresses matched. Sarah felt vindicated. Finally, someone understood the mistake that had been made. So Linda just picked the first Sarah Martinez she found and assumed I was the right person, Sarah said. It appears that way, Officer Johnson said. She should have done more thorough research before making accusations. Just then, Officer Johnson's computer made a sound indicating new email. He checked his inbox and smiled. We have a reply from Samuel Martinez, he said excitedly. He opened the email and read it out loud. Officer Johnson, thank you for contacting me about my property. I have been deployed overseas for 6 months and have not been able to maintain the house. I tried to contact the HOA before I left, but I could not reach anyone. I have been worried about violations piling up. I can arrange for a property management company to take care of the house immediately. Please call me at this international number to discuss details. Also, I do not understand why you mentioned Sarah Martinez. I do not know anyone by that name. My full name is Samuel Rodriguez Martinez. Sincerely, Samuel R. Martinez. Sarah felt like crying with relief. He said his full name is Samuel Rodriguez Martinez. He does not know me. He confirmed he owns the house and has been deployed overseas. This proves everything, Maria said. Sarah Elena Martinez and Samuel Rodriguez Martinez are completely different people who happen to share part of their names. Officer Johnson was writing notes rapidly. This is excellent evidence. Mr. Martinez confirms he owns the property, confirms he has been deployed, and confirms he does not know you. This clearly shows Mrs. Hoffman made an error. What do we do now? Sarah asked. Now I call Mrs. Hoffman and explain what we have discovered, Officer Johnson said. With this evidence, she will have to admit the mistake. Sarah felt nervous again. What if she still does not believe it? She was very stubborn this morning. This is different, Officer Johnson said confidently. We have direct communication from the actual property owner. She cannot argue with that. Officer Johnson picked up his phone and dialed Linda's number. Sarah could hear it ringing through the speaker. Linda, this is Officer Johnson. I have been reviewing the Sarah Martinez case with new evidence. Yes, I know you met with her this morning. No, please listen. I have received an email from Samuel Martinez, the actual owner of 847 Maple Street. Sarah could hear Linda's voice getting louder and angrier, but she could not understand the words. Linda, please calm down and listen to the facts, Officer Johnson said firmly. Samuel Rodriguez Martinez is deployed overseas with the National Guard. He owns the house. Sarah Elena Martinez is a different person who lives in an apartment. No, it is not a conspiracy. Linda, I am reading you an email directly from the property owner. The conversation continued for several minutes. Officer Johnson remained calm and professional, but Sarah could tell Linda was very upset on the other end of the phone. Finally, Officer Johnson hung up and sighed. Mrs. Hoffman is not taking this news well. What did she say? Maria asked. She insists this is all an elaborate fraud. She thinks you and Samuel Martinez are working together to deceive the HOA. She says the email could be fake and the deployment story could be made up. Sarah felt her hope crashing down again. So she still does not believe us? Not yet, Officer Johnson said. But I have an idea. Let me call Samuel. The next morning, Officer Johnson called Sarah with unexpected news. "Mrs. Hoffman wants to meet with you again," he said. "But she is insisting that Samuel Martinez come to the meeting in person." Sarah felt confused. "But he is deployed overseas. He cannot just fly back for a meeting." "I explained that to her," Officer Johnson said with frustration in his voice. "But she claims the phone call yesterday could have been fake. She says anyone can pretend to be someone else over the phone." Maria, who was listening on speakerphone, rolled her eyes. "This woman is impossible. What more proof does she need?" "She wants to see Samuel Martinez face to face," Officer Johnson continued. "She says that is the only way she will believe he is real." Sarah felt her hope fading again. "So we are back where we started? She still thinks I'm lying?" "Not exactly," Officer Johnson said. "I have been doing some research of my own. I found Samuel Martinez's wife, Maria Martinez. She lives here locally and has been managing his affairs while he is deployed." Sarah perked up. "His wife is here? Can she help us?" "I think so. I called her this morning and explained the situation. She was very upset to learn that someone else was being blamed for her husband's property violations. She wants to meet with Mrs. Hoffman today." "That is great news," Maria said. "When can we meet her?" 2:00 at the HOA office, Officer Johnson said. "Mrs. Martinez is bringing all of Samuel's deployment papers, their marriage certificate, and other documents to prove his identity." Sarah felt nervous about going back to the HOA office. Her last meeting with Linda had been so unpleasant, but she also felt excited that finally the truth would come out. At exactly 2:00, Sarah and Maria arrived at the HOA office. Officer Johnson was already there, along with a woman about Sarah's age with long black hair and kind eyes. She was carrying a large folder of documents. "You must be Sarah," the woman said, extending her hand. "I am Maria Martinez, Samuel's wife. I am so sorry this happened to you." Sarah shook her hand gratefully. "Thank you for coming. This has been such a nightmare. I cannot believe anyone thought you were my husband," Maria Martinez said with a smile. "You are obviously completely different people." Janet, the office assistant, greeted them nervously. "Mrs. Hoffman is waiting in her office. I have to warn you, she is still very upset about this whole situation." They walked into Linda's office together. Linda was sitting behind her desk with her arms crossed and an angry expression on her face. She looked at Maria Martinez with suspicion. "So you claim to be married to Samuel Martinez?" Linda said without any greeting. "I do not claim to be married to him," Maria Martinez replied calmly. "I am married to him. We have been married for 5 years." Maria Martinez opened her folder and pulled out a marriage certificate. "Here is our marriage license from the county clerk's office." Linda barely glanced at it. "Marriage certificates can be faked." Maria Martinez pulled out more documents. "Here are Samuel's military deployment orders. Here is a letter from his commanding officer. Here are photos of our wedding 5 years ago." Linda looked at the photos with skepticism. Anyone can print photos and claim they are real. Sarah watched this exchange with disbelief. Linda was being even more unreasonable than before. She was rejecting every piece of evidence without even examining it carefully. "Mrs. Hoffman," Officer Johnson said firmly, "these are official military documents. They cannot be faked easily." "People fake military documents all the time," Linda insisted. "There are websites that create fake deployment orders for people who want to avoid their responsibilities." Maria Martinez looked shocked. "Are you accusing my husband of faking his military service? He is serving his country overseas right now." "I am saying there is no proof that Samuel Martinez is a real person," Linda said. "For all I know, you and Sarah Martinez made up this whole story together." Sarah felt her anger rising. "Why would we make up such a complicated story? If I really owned that house, would it not be easier to just pay the fines?" "Maybe you do not have the money," Linda suggested. "Maybe you are hoping we will just give up and forget about the fines." Maria Martinez stood up straighter. "Mrs. Hoffman, I can prove my husband is real. Would you like me to call him right now so you can speak to him directly?" "Phone calls prove nothing," Linda said dismissively. "You could have anyone pretend to be Samuel Martinez. Then what would convince you?" Maria asked, clearly frustrated. Linda smiled coldly. "Bring Samuel Martinez here in person. Let me see him face to face. That is the only proof I will accept." "He is deployed overseas with the military," Maria explained again. "He cannot just leave his post to come to a HOA meeting." "That sounds like an excuse to me," Linda said. "If he really cared about his property, He would find a way to come back and deal with it. Officer Johnson looked embarrassed by Linda's behavior. Mrs. Hoffman, that is not how military deployment works. Soldiers cannot just leave their assignments whenever they want. I have heard enough excuses for one day, Linda announced. Until Samuel Martinez appears in person, I will continue to hold Sarah Martinez responsible for the fines. Sarah felt desperate. But I have proven I am not the right person. I have shown you my lease, my bank statements, everything. You have shown me papers that could be fake, Linda said. And now you have brought in an accomplice to help support your story. Maria Martinez looked hurt. I am not an accomplice. I am just trying to help solve a misunderstanding. There is no misunderstanding, Linda said firmly. There is only Sarah Martinez trying to avoid paying money she owes. Janet, who had been quiet during the meeting, finally spoke up. Linda, maybe we should contact the military base directly. They could confirm Samuel Martinez's deployment. Linda turned her angry stare toward Janet. Do not tell me how to investigate this case. I have been doing this job longer than you have been working here. I am just trying to help, Janet said quietly. You can help by supporting my decisions instead of questioning them, Linda snapped. Sarah realized that Linda was not interested in finding the truth. She had already decided Sarah was guilty, and no amount of evidence would change her mind. Linda seemed to enjoy having power over people and making them feel helpless. Mrs. Hoffman, Maria Martinez said, trying one more time. I have Samuel's social security number, his military ID number, his date of birth, everything. We can verify his identity through official channels. Or you could have looked up someone else's information and pretended it was your husband's, Linda replied. Sarah felt like she was in a nightmare. No matter what evidence they provided, Linda found a way to dismiss it. She was determined to believe that Sarah was guilty. What if we brought other people who know Samuel? Sarah suggested. His family members, his business partners, his neighbors. They could all be part of the conspiracy, Linda said. Maria Martinez looked at Officer Johnson with exasperation. Is she always like this? Officer Johnson looked embarrassed. Mrs. Hoffman is very thorough in her investigations. This is not thorough, Maria Martinez said angrily. This is stubborn and unreasonable. You have been presented with overwhelming evidence that Sarah is innocent, and you refuse to accept it. Linda stood up behind her desk. I will not be lectured about how to do my job. I have been protecting this community for 5 years. I know how to spot fraudsters and excuse-makers. But what if you are wrong? Sarah asked quietly. What if I really am innocent? You are not innocent, Linda said with certainty. And I will prove it by making you pay every penny you owe. As the meeting ended, Sarah felt defeated again. She had hoped that Maria Martinez's evidence would finally convince Linda. But Linda was too proud and too stubborn to admit she had made a mistake. Outside the office, Maria Martinez apologized to Sarah. I am so sorry that did not work. I have never met anyone so unreasonable. It is not your fault, Sarah said. You tried to help. Linda just will not listen to anyone. Officer Johnson looked troubled. I have been working with Mrs. Hoffman for 3 years, but I have never seen her act quite like this. She usually listens to evidence. What makes this case different? Maria asked. Officer Johnson thought for a moment. I think she has invested too much time and energy in this case. She has been working on it for months. If she admits she was wrong, it means all that work was wasted. So she would rather ruin an innocent person's life than admit a mistake? Sarah asked. It appears that way, Officer Johnson said sadly. As they walked to their cars, Maria Martinez had an idea. What if we went around Linda? Are there other people in the HOA who could overrule her? There is a board of directors, Officer Johnson said. But Linda is very influential with them. They usually support her decisions. But if we presented our evidence to the whole board, maybe some of them would be more reasonable, Sarah suggested. Officer Johnson nodded slowly. That might work. The next board meeting is tomorrow night. It is open to residents, but since this involves a non-resident, they might make an exception. Sarah felt a spark of hope. Can we try that? I think we should, Maria Martinez said. Linda cannot control what everyone thinks. Some of the board members must be reasonable people. As they made plans for the board meeting, Sarah felt grateful for the support she was receiving. Maria Martinez barely knew her, but she was willing to fight for the truth. Officer Johnson was risking his professional. The next evening, Sarah arrived at the Willowbrook Estates Community Center feeling nervous but determined. The monthly HOA board meeting was about to begin, and this was her chance to present her case to people who might be more reasonable than Linda. Maria Martinez was already there, along with Officer Johnson and Sarah's sister, Maria. They had spent the afternoon organizing their evidence and preparing what they would say to the board. The community center was filling up with residents. Sarah looked around at the faces and wondered what they were thinking. Did they know about her case? Did they think she was a troublemaker trying to avoid paying fines? Remember, Officer Johnson whispered to Sarah, these board members are volunteers from the community. They are regular people, not professional investigators like Linda thinks she is. The board members took their seats at a long table in front of the room. Linda sat in the center as president. To her right was a man in his 60s who looked like a retired teacher. To her left was a woman about Linda's age who wore a friendly smile. Good evening, everyone, Linda said, calling the meeting to order. We have our usual agenda tonight, but first we need to address a disruption to HOA business. Sarah felt her heart sink. Linda was already making her sound like a troublemaker before she even got to speak. We have been dealing with a case of someone trying to avoid paying legitimate fines, Linda continued. This person has brought in accomplices and fake documents to support her claims of innocence. The board members looked confused. The friendly woman raised her hand. Linda, what case are you talking about? I do not remember discussing this at our last meeting. This is the Sarah Martinez case, Linda explained, the owner of 847 Maple Street who owes over $3,000 in fines. A man at the end of the table looked surprised. I thought that property was owned by Samuel Martinez. Linda's face turned red. It is owned by Sarah Martinez. She has been pretending there is someone else named Samuel Martinez, but it is all a lie. Officer Johnson stood up. Excuse me, but I would like to present evidence to the board about this case. Linda glared at him. Officer Johnson, you are not authorized to speak at board meetings. Actually, said the friendly woman, I think we should hear all the evidence before making any decisions. I am Susan Chen, the vice president. Officer Johnson, please tell us what you have found. Officer Johnson walked to the front of the room. Board members, I have conducted a thorough investigation of this case. I have found clear evidence that Linda has confused two different people with similar names. He began presenting the evidence systematically. He showed the property records, explained the timeline of Samuel's deployment, and read portions of the emails from Samuel Martinez. Most importantly, Officer Johnson said, I have spoken directly with Samuel Rodriguez Martinez, the actual owner of the property. He is currently deployed overseas with the National Guard. The board members listened carefully. Unlike Linda, they asked thoughtful questions and examined the documents closely. This is very interesting, said the man who looked like a retired teacher. I am Robert Kim, the treasurer. Officer Johnson, do you have contact information for this Samuel Martinez? I do, Officer Johnson replied. In fact, his wife is here tonight to speak on his behalf. Maria Martinez stood up and walked to the front. Good evening, board members. My name is Maria Martinez. My husband Samuel owns the house at 847 Maple Street. He has been deployed with the military for 6 months. She presented her evidence clearly and calmly. The board members seemed impressed by her documentation and her straightforward manner of speaking. Mrs. Martinez, Susan Chen said, can you explain why your husband did not respond to the HOA violation letters? He never received them, Maria explained. All the letters were sent to 847 Maple Street, but Samuel has been overseas. The mail was returned as undeliverable because no one was there to receive it. Robert Kim nodded. That makes sense. Military deployment would explain both the property neglect and the lack of response to violations. Linda stood up angrily. This is all an elaborate fraud. These people are working together to create a fake story. Linda, Susan Chen said firmly, please sit down. We need to evaluate this evidence objectively. Another board member, a woman in her 40s, raised her hand. I am Jennifer Walsh, the secretary. I have a question for Sarah Martinez. Sarah stood up nervously. Yes, ma'am. Can you tell us where you live and how long you have lived there? Sarah explained about her apartment, her job at the bank, and her complete lack of connection to Willowbrook Estates. She spoke honestly and simply, and the board members seemed to believe her. Sarah, Jennifer Walsh said gently, have you ever been to 847 Maple Street before this controversy started? Never, Sarah said firmly. I had never even heard of Willowbrook Estates until Linda came to my apartment last Saturday. And you have never owned any property at all? No, ma'am. I have always lived in apartments. I cannot afford to buy a house on my salary, the board members whispered among themselves. Sarah could see them looking at Linda with concerned expressions. Robert Kim spoke up. Linda, how did you determine that Sarah Martinez was the owner of 847 Maple Street? Linda looked defensive. I looked up Sarah Martinez in public records and found her address. But did you verify that the Sarah Martinez you found was the same person as S. Martinez on the property deed? Linda hesitated. The names matched. But did you check anything else? Social security numbers? Birth dates? Employment records? Linda's face was getting redder. The names were the same. That was enough. Susan Chen looked shocked. Linda, you accused someone of owing thousands of dollars based only on a name match? You did not verify their identity in any other way? I did not need to, Linda said stubbornly. Sarah Martinez owns the property. Sarah Martinez owes the money. But there could be multiple people named Sarah Martinez in the city, Jennifer Walsh pointed out. It is not an uncommon name. This is the right Sarah Martinez, Linda insisted, but her voice sounded less confident than before. Officer Johnson stepped forward again. Board members, I would like to make a phone call to Samuel Martinez right now. You can speak to him directly and verify his identity. That is an excellent idea, Robert Kim said. Linda, do you object to calling the property owner? Linda looked trapped. Phone calls can be faked. Anyone can pretend to be someone else over the phone. Linda, Susan Chen said with disapproval. That is a very serious accusation. Are you saying that Officer Johnson is involved in fraud? I am saying that people will do anything to avoid paying legitimate fines, Linda replied. The board members looked at each other with concern. Sarah could see that they were starting to doubt Linda's judgment. Officer Johnson pulled out his phone and dialed Samuel's international number. I am calling Samuel Martinez now, he announced to the room. The phone rang several times before Samuel answered. Hello, this is Samuel. Mr. Martinez, this is Officer Johnson from Willowbrook Estates. I am at a board meeting with several people who would like to speak with you about your property. Of course, Samuel said. His voice came through the speaker clearly. I am happy to help resolve this situation. Susan Chen leaned toward the phone. Mr. Martinez, this is Susan Chen, Vice President of the HOA Board. Can you confirm your full name and address? My name is Samuel Rodriguez Martinez. I own the house at 847 Maple Street in Willowbrook Estates. I bought it 3 years ago as an investment property. And where are you currently located? Robert Kim asked. I am deployed overseas with the National Guard. I have been here for 6 months and will be here for 6 more months. Jennifer Walsh spoke up. Mr. Martinez, do you know anyone named Sarah Elena Martinez? No, I have never heard that name before this week, Samuel replied. Officer Johnson explained to me that someone with a similar name was being blamed for violations at my property. I feel terrible about that. The board members looked satisfied with Samuel's answers. His voice was clearly that of a man, and his explanations were consistent with all the evidence they had seen. Mr. Martinez, Susan Chen said, we apologize for the confusion. We will work with you to resolve the property violations immediately. Thank you, Samuel said. I am arranging for a property management company to take care of everything. I should have done that before my deployment, but everything happened so quickly. After the phone call ended, the room was quiet for a moment. The board members looked at Linda with disappointment and concern. Linda, Robert Kim said seriously, it appears you have made a significant error in this case. Linda's face was bright red now. This could still be an elaborate conspiracy. They could have planned this whole thing. Linda, Susan Chen said firmly, that is enough. We have seen overwhelming evidence that Sarah Martinez is innocent. You owe her an apology. I will not apologize for doing my job, Linda said angrily. This is not doing your job properly, Jennifer Walsh said. This is harassment of an innocent person. The board members began talking among themselves in low voices. Sarah could not hear everything they were saying, but she caught words like serious mistake and poor judgment. Finally, Susan Chen addressed the room. The board has decided that this case is closed. Sarah Martinez owes no fines to the HOA. We will work directly with Samuel Martinez to resolve the violations at his property. 2 weeks after the board meeting, Sarah's life had returned to normal. She was back to enjoying her peaceful Saturday mornings with coffee and a book. The stress and fear of the past week felt like a bad dream that was finally over, but the story was not quite finished yet. On that Saturday morning, Sarah got a phone call from Officer Johnson. "I have some interesting news about what happened after the board meeting," he said. "What kind of news?" Sarah asked, curious. "Well, it turns out that several residents came forward after the meeting with their own stories about Linda. Apparently, your case was not the only time she had been unreasonable and aggressive." Sarah sat down in her favorite chair. "Really? Other people had problems with her too?" "Many people," Officer Johnson explained. "After they saw how she treated you, they felt brave enough to speak up about their own experiences. Linda had been bullying residents for years, but most people were too scared to complain." Officer Johnson told Sarah about some of the other cases. Linda had fined an elderly man for having the wrong color flowers in his garden. She had threatened legal action against a family whose children's toys were visible in their backyard. She had even tried to fine someone for having a small American flag in their window. "It sounds like she was drunk on power," Sarah said. "That is exactly what the board concluded," Officer Johnson replied. "They held a special meeting 3 days after the regular meeting. They voted to remove Linda as president." Sarah felt surprised but also satisfied. She was fired? Yes, Susan Chen is now the acting president. They also changed the rules about how violations are investigated. Now they require more evidence before accusing anyone of breaking rules. "That is good news," Sarah said. "Maybe other innocent people will not have to go through what I went through." "There is more," Officer Johnson continued. "The board also decided to send you an official apology letter, and they are paying for the investigation costs that you incurred." Sarah had not expected that. Investigation costs? You know, the time you spent researching, printing documents, driving to meetings. They calculated about $200 for your expenses. It is not much, but it is their way of saying sorry. After the phone call, Sarah felt a sense of closure. Justice had been served. Linda had faced consequences for her behavior, and the HOA had taken steps to prevent future problems. But Sarah was also curious about what had happened to Linda. A few days later, she found out Maria Martinez called with an update. "I heard from one of the residents in Willowbrook Estates. Linda is telling everyone that the board made a terrible mistake by firing her." "Is she still living in the community?" Sarah asked. "Yes, but she is very bitter. She keeps saying that the community will fall apart without her strict enforcement of the rules. Some people are avoiding her because she is so angry all the time." Sarah felt a little sorry for Linda. Despite everything that had happened, it must be hard to lose a position that had been so important to her identity. But Linda had brought it on herself by being unreasonable and refusing to admit mistakes. A month later, Sarah received a letter in the mail. The return address showed Willowbrook Estates HOA. For a moment, Sarah felt a flash of the old fear. But when she opened it, she found a formal apology letter signed by all the board members. The letter apologized for the serious error in judgment and the unacceptable treatment Sarah had received. It thanked her for her patience and cooperation in resolving the matter. It also included a check for $200 to cover her expenses. But the most meaningful part was a handwritten note at the bottom from Susan Chen. "Your courage in standing up for the truth helped us realize that our procedures needed to change. Thank you for making our community better." Sarah showed the letter to her sister Maria, who smiled with satisfaction. "You should frame that letter. It is proof that good things happen when you stand up for yourself." "I think I will," Sarah said. As the months passed, Sarah occasionally heard updates about Willowbrook Estates. Samuel Martinez had returned from his deployment and fixed up his house beautifully. It was now one of the nicest properties in the community. He had sent Sarah a thank you card with a photo of the renovated house. The HOA was running much more smoothly under Susan Chen's leadership. She focused on helping residents rather than punishing them. When violations occurred, she worked with people to find solutions instead of immediately issuing fines. Linda remained in the community, but kept to herself. Some residents said she seemed depressed and lonely. She no longer participated in HOA activities or community events. Sarah heard that Linda had tried to run for the board again the following year, but she received very few votes. Most residents had not forgotten how she had treated Sarah and other community members. One day, almost a year after the whole ordeal began, Sarah was grocery shopping when she ran into Janet, the former HOA office assistant. "Sarah," Janet said with genuine warmth, "How are you doing?" "I am doing great," Sarah replied. "How are things at the HOA office?" "Much better," Janet said with a smile. "Susan Chen is wonderful to work for. She treats everyone with respect and actually listens when people have concerns." "What about Linda?" Sarah asked, curious despite herself. Janet looked sad. "She is not doing well. I think losing her position as president really affected her. She seemed to define herself by that job." "That is too bad," Sarah said, and she meant it. She did not like Linda, but she did not want anyone to be miserable. "You know," Janet said, "what you did took a lot of courage. Linda was used to people backing down when she got aggressive. You were the first person who really stood up to her." "I was just defending myself," Sarah said. "It was more than that," Janet replied. "You showed everyone that Linda could be wrong. That gave other people the courage to speak up about their own problems with her." As Sarah drove home from the grocery store, she thought about Janet's words. She had not set out to be brave or to change anything. She had just been trying to prove her innocence. But sometimes one person standing up for the truth can have bigger effects than they realize. Sarah's case had exposed problems in the HOA that had been going on for years. It had led to better procedures and fairer treatment for everyone. Sarah pulled into her apartment complex and looked up at her window. This was where the whole adventure had started when Linda knocked on her door that Saturday morning. At the time, it had seemed like the worst thing that could happen to her. But now Sarah realized it had actually been a gift in disguise. She had discovered inner strength she did not know she had. She had learned that she could stand up to bullies and fight for what was right. She had made friends with good people like Officer Johnson and Maria Martinez. Most importantly, she had learned that the truth really does matter. It might take time and effort to prove, but truth has a power that lies and bullying cannot defeat. As Sarah walked up to her apartment, she felt grateful for everything that had happened. Her quiet, peaceful life was even more precious now because she had almost lost it. Her Saturday mornings felt more special because she had earned the right to enjoy them. Sarah unlocked her door and stepped inside her home. Tomorrow was Sunday, and she planned to sleep in, make her favorite coffee, and read a good book by the window. But if anyone ever tried to falsely accuse her of something again, Sarah knew she was ready. She had learned how to fight for the truth. And she had learned that sometimes fighting for the truth is the most important thing you can do. The story had a happy ending, but more than that, it had a meaningful ending. Sarah had not just cleared her name. She had helped make her community a better place for everyone, and that was worth more than any amount of money Linda could have demanded. Sarah smiled as she made her evening tea. Life was good. Justice had been served, and tomorrow would bring another peaceful morning in her favorite chair by the window. Some people might call it a simple life, but Sarah had learned that simple could be perfect, especially when you had earned it by standing up for what was right. The saga of HOA Karen and the innocent Sarah Martinez was over. But the lessons Sarah had learned would stay with her forever. She was stronger now, braver now, and more confident in her ability to handle whatever life might bring. And on quiet Saturday mornings, when the sun streamed through her window and her coffee was perfectly warm, Sarah would remember that she had fought for the truth and won. That knowledge made every peaceful moment even sweeter.